I thank you very much for the opportunity to be here this evening to speak with you. We don't get enough speaking engagements to get the word out about what Wounded Warriors is all about. I want to give you a brief background on things in Afghanistan. I was going to do a brief background of my career, but I think we know that now. Anyway, in 2006, I was selected to go to Afghanistan as the adjutant of the National Support Element. And what an adjutant is really an executive officer. However, that is a non-social work position, and I was there in a command role. And one of the things that the National Support Element was responsible for was supplying the forward operating bases by sending 2 convoys a day on the roads of Afghanistan. So, one of our policies was that if we put our soldiers on the road twice a day, we put ourselves on the road at least once a day. The convoys were very dangerous. I'm not going to go into detail about the convoys because I don't think that you want to hear that just before you leave. But suffice it to know that I saw many, many things that I couldn't understand in my head, how one human being could do that to another human being. I struggled with that for a very long time, and then upon return to Canada, I knew that I wasn't normal. Well, I may not have been normal when I went. But things started to happen to me. I started to have nightmares. I started to have flashbacks. Loud noises would send me running away. I completely isolated myself from my family. For instance, in our house, I don't know why, but my wife would always serve me dinner first. And when she served me dinner, I would always wait till she served the children and herself, and we always had dinner together. It was a mainstay in our home. When I came back from Afghanistan, that wasn't the case. As soon as I was served dinner, I ate it immediately, and I went to another room. And if one of the children came to that room, I went to a different room. And I would wait for them all to go to bed, and I'd drink a bottle of rum. It was the only way I could get to sleep. And it was the only way I could stay asleep. So I took the job, as you mentioned, Tom, as the manager of the Integrated Personal Support Center, which didn't exist before. So we had to stand the center up, and it was for an organization for taking care of ill and injured members and their families. Well, I wasn't very successful at that job. It was too difficult for me to work with the families of the 22 soldiers that I sent home from Afghanistan. And they went home with flags over their caskets. On one occasion, I recall, Easter Sunday, 2007, we received a call that a convoy had been hit. And when we went to the hospital, I was told that there was 4 injuries, or 4 dead. And when I went to the hospital, I was greeted by a doctor who said, no, he said, there's not 4 dead. So I said, well, that is such a relief. No, Todd, he said, there's 6 dead. That happened twice on our tour. And in the end, we had 22 soldiers that we sent home who never came home with us. And what became very difficult about that is I did a cross-Canada tour before I went to Afghanistan. I started in Newfoundland and I went straight to BC, and I stopped in every province across the country. And I promised the parents that I'd bring their children home. And I didn't. So that haunted me for years. To the point that my daughter, my youngest daughter, who's in the military today and posted in Germany, by the way, my youngest daughter said to me, you know, my father went to Afghanistan and you came home. It was very difficult to hear. My oldest daughter approached me and said, Dad, you're not normal. Something's happened to you. Of course, being a clinical social worker, I knew exactly what happened to me. I was suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder. So we had a family forum where we all sat down together, and they had an opportunity to tell me the differences that they found in me. And as I said, my youngest explained to me that her father never did come home from Afghanistan. My oldest noticed the empty rum bottles because I wasn't smart enough to hide them. So she saw my empty rum bottles and she knew I wasn't sleeping and she knew I was avoiding everybody. And by the way, she's a nurse. So she said, "Dad, I know what's wrong with you and you need to fix it." And then my wife said to me, whom I started dating in high school, by the way, my wife said to me, "If you can't fix this, you're on your own. We're finished." That was enough to take me to Veterans Affairs the next day and seek help. And that's when I got diagnosed and went into therapy. I did therapy for a couple of years. I had one suicide attempt while my wife and I were away on a vacation. And fortunately, I can't tie a slip knot, or I wouldn't be here. After that, I was admitted to the hospital. I did a stint in the psych ward and was released from the hospital. But the day before I was released, I had a psychiatrist come visit me, and he said to me, "You're a very, very sick man. You need day therapy." It's a program that they had every day for outpatients. And I said, "I'm willing to do that." He came to me the next day and said, "I'm going to release you, but you can't go in the day program. We won't take any military people anymore. They're too violent." So I was left on my own, left to my own devices. Things continued to deteriorate to a point you wouldn't believe, that my life was completely falling apart. I ended up off work for 2 years, and when I came back to work, I had to quit because I couldn't do that job anymore. And then I transferred to Halifax, and it was just my wife and I that transferred here to Halifax. And I had another suicide attempt shortly after we arrived here. And my wife told me, once again, that if you can't fix this, you have to be on your own because I can't do this with you anymore. So I didn't know what to do next. My therapist had told me about an organization called Wounded Warriors Canada. I didn't know what Wounded Warriors Canada was, who they were, what they were about. So I went online and I read about their programs. And I would encourage you to take an opportunity to Google Wounded Warriors Canada and see the programs that we offer, because there are too many for me to remember here tonight and try to tell you about them. But there was one program in particular that I'm very fond of, and I'll explain that in a minute. But it's called Camp Praxis. And it's an equine assisted learning therapy program for couples to learn how to manage their conflict. By the way, I was a mediator as well as a social worker, but I wasn't mediating things very well at home. So we took the program and it changed our life completely. We are back together, stronger than ever, and to this day, I'm happy to tell you that I am a facilitator for the Camp Praxis program. I go to Whitby, Ontario every second month and treat veterans and their spouses who can't seem to manage their conflict. Wounded Warriors Canada probably, well, I won't say probably, Wounded Warriors Canada saved my marriage and probably saved my life. And we wouldn't have a Wounded Warriors Canada without the partnerships that we have, such as the one that we have with Budget Blinds. We're a non-profit charity, and we depend on donations from the Canadian public and certainly Canadian businesses. I realize you're up here from the States. Budget Blinds has been a major supporter of Wounded Warriors Canada, and you need to know that the contributions that you make are saving lives. I see it all the time. I just did a course 2 months ago in Ontario, and when I went to speak the first day, there was a lady on my left who stood up, turned from me, and began to cry. So I told everybody, this is where we take our first break. And I went for a walk with her, and she told me what was being so difficult for her. And I said, how about staying till the end of the day? If at the end of today, you're not getting anything out of this program, I will personally drive you to the airport. So she agreed to stay to the end of the day. At the end of the fourth day, her husband shook my hand, and I went to shake her hand, and she said she wanted a hug instead. And she whispered in my ear, you saved my marriage. He came back to me and said, you saved my life. That is only possible because of the partnership that we have with organizations like Budget Blinds. You are making a difference. We so much appreciate what you're doing for our veterans here in Canada, because veterans often get forgotten, particularly the families. And Wounded Warriors is all about helping veterans and their families. So I say once again, on behalf of Wounded Warriors, thank you so much for your generosity and your support from Budget Blinds. And remember, we honor the fallen and we help the living. Thank you.
Thank you for reminding us of how important this initiative is, and for sharing your story. That's incredible. At this time, I'd like to welcome up our partner in this initiative, Springs Window Fashions. Representatives of the joining. Todd, we'd like to present you with his check to Wounded Warriors Canada for $15,000.